of fate.
This is the way. Truth is, I am Iron Man.
Tells me when you'll remember this.
Hello, critics, non-critics, and friends. Welcome to the Film Optix podcast, where we take a glance into blockbusters, indie films, and everything in between. I'm your host, Christian, and as always, I'm joined by my partner in film, Devin. And today, we're eager to give our spoiler thoughts on episodes 3 and 4 of Ahsoka, respectively titled episode 3, or part 3, I should say, is titled Time to Fly, and episode 4 is titled Fallen Jedi. Fallen Jedi just hits Disney Plus on September 6th. So we're actually going to be combining two episodes again together for Ahsoka. We were going to wait until the end of the series to cover Ahsoka, but life happens. And yeah, we're just going to be giving you our spoiler thoughts on last week's episode. Again, that's episode 3, and this week's episode, which is episode 4. But before we begin today's episode, you can listen to our podcast on podcast platforms around the internet. That includes Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. And if you are a new or seasoned listener to our show, we would love to hear from you guys. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Threads at Film Optix. That is Optix with an X. Or you can email us at filmoptix@gmail.com for any movie-related questions. Devin, it's a Thursday. Finally. Well, a 4-day week, a 4-day work week. But how's your week been? What have you been watching this week? Anything interesting?
I mean, I've not been watching much, but it's just been starfielding all over.
Playing the fields, Starfield.
Yeah, I think I've just looked a little bit ago. I think I'm at around 20 hours.
Oh, wow. I'm like 3, maybe, if that. Because, I mean, Devin had a huge head start and basically bought the game or is playing the game early. He paid for early access for that game. So he has a huge head start on a lot of people. And so do a lot of other people. Because even though Starfield hits store shelves September 6th, it feels like it's been out for longer than that.
It already has 1 million concurrent players.
Yeah. So, hey, I'm enjoying it. I know a lot of other people are enjoying it. With big releases like that, you're going to have a few bugs here and there. They're not tech gurus. Games are going to kind of ship with that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm glad that you're having a good time. I'm having a good time as well. As far as, so actually I wanted to ask you, what did you name your character, or is it not podcast friendly?
Yeah, it's not very suitable for work. I'm surprised they even allowed such a word to be used in a name, but Bethesda gives you freedom. Yeah,
Bethesda gives you freedom. I actually took the liberty and am naming my person Bro Katan Kryze. So yeah, nice little Star Wars reference.
So are you Bo's brother, or are you in a relationship with Bo? What's the deal there?
I will just say bro as in brother kind of thing. Yeah, sure. I don't know. I just always like the name. I was going to go with a female character, but I decided to go with a male character on my first playthrough. But yeah,
you might be able to make some Star Wars ships in there once you get up and going.
Yeah, I know. I've seen so many, like the X-Wing and the Millennium Falcon as well. So I'm like, oh, this is going to be awesome. I'm wondering if you'll be able to make the Ghost from Rebels. That would be pretty awesome. But of course, it's Starfield. We're talking all things sci-fi here today. And as we mentioned, we are going to be getting into our episode 3 and 4 spoiler review of Ahsoka, which is now streaming on Disney Plus as of September 7th, 2023. So you've had your time. For the people who have wanted to watch last week's episode and especially this week's episode, you've had your time. We're just going to dive right on in. So without further delay, we'll be right back after this introduction to Ahsoka.
Missed. I had them, but missed.
Don't worry about it. You'll get another chance. We got 2 more incoming. Dead ahead. I'm gonna split them. Ready? Ready. Now! Woo! I got one! Good work.
And we are back with our Ahsoka series, episode 3 and 4 spoiler review. We are now officially halfway through this series, and it doesn't feel that way because Disney likes to do this weird thing where they give you multiple episodes for a season premiere. And even though it's weird, it's something that I like that they do depending on the show. As we mentioned with episodes 1 and 2 on our previous episode, there are some shows that have like 2 episodes together, especially for a premiere, that just go well, like bacon and eggs or peanut butter and jelly, and kind of set up the rest of the series moving forward, which is what Ahsoka did for episodes 1 and 2. So episode 1 and 2 are the setup to the entire journey. And within these past 2 weeks, we have been, closely watching for episode 3 and 4. And now that we are both caught up with episode 4, we both watched it within the past few days. And man, oh man, episode 4 was crazy. But let's actually start with episode 3 and then we'll move on to episode 4. But I wanted to pass the mic over to Devin. For episode 3, just your quick thoughts. What are you thinking of for episode 3? And then give me your separate thoughts in episode 4. So part 3, episode 3 was titled Time to Fly. Again, and then this week's episode, part 4, was Fallen Jedi. So Devin, take it away.
Yeah, for me, episode 3 was a bit of a letdown, especially compared to the first 2 episodes and what we got and kind of how exciting those ones were. There definitely were some moments, like there's some cool dogfighting in the stars in this one. There's some cool ship battles. But this one was definitely really short, 35 minutes. Didn't really grab me as much as the first 2. Overall, it was kind of just on, and it didn't really pull me in, but episode 4, like you mentioned, that's the one where it really kind of blows you away because there's so much happening and there's so much excitement in episode 4 that we can dive into.
Yeah, I definitely feel like episode 4 is going to be the talk of the town when it comes to, these 2 episodes, and that being the mid-series episode. And oddly enough, with episode 5, which airs next week, Disney is doing this, they're streaming episode 5 in select theaters across the market, which is pretty interesting. I'm like, all right, I feel like they probably could have just done that for like an entire seasonal run or maybe for like the season finale. Because I know for Stranger Things Day last year, I think it was this year. It was last year. For Stranger Things Day, Netflix partnered with a bunch of theaters and streamed the penultimate episode and the season finale of Stranger Things, which I think is actually pretty awesome. But yeah, so for episode 3, for my quick thoughts, again, that is titled Time to Fly. It is a bit of a shorter episode compared to episode 1, which is titled Master and Apprentice. And then episode 2 is titled Toil and Trouble. Those are around, I think the first episode was around 57 minutes. That's with credits. And part 2 or episode 2 was around clocking in around 44 minutes. So this is technically the shortest of the 2 when it comes to part 3 and 4, for episode 3 being 37 minutes. I enjoyed the episode for what it was because we finally got to see Sabine back in like her training with Ahsoka. We've kind of already established that Ahsoka is training Sabine when it comes to being a Jedi. And George Lucas has said this on many, many occasions. And so has Dave Filoni, where especially George Lucas saying that every single person in the Star Wars universe has the Force resided in them. And that has always been a thing. I've always known that. People have these crazy fan theories of, was Han Solo Force sensitive to a bit? And I know there's a few people out there who aren't super crazy about Sabine being a Jedi or training to be a Jedi. But now that we've seen episode 3 and especially episode 4, I kind of dig it because she's not a traditional Jedi. Yes, she has the Force resided within her. Like I just said, George Lucas has said on multiple occasions that every single person has the Force residing within them. Some people are more in tune with it than others. It comes more natural to others. But I like the fact that everyone has the Force within them.
I just hope we don't get another Finn fake out here. The Force tickled him and then never again.
It tickled him. What could have been? But I mean, when it comes to episode 3, it is more of like a chase sequence episode, but it is very good. And I enjoy how we were able to, it was kind of the bridge episode. Not a lot happens, but we get some pretty awesome dogfighting, like Devin said, some pretty awesome action scenes as well. So moving from episode 3, which has Shin and Balon, the 2 dark side users. They're not technically Sith users because there are other Sith out there, but they're not necessarily Inquisitors either. They're just dark side users, which is weird when it comes to the world of Star Wars because, you can have someone like Luke Skywalker, who is essentially a self-proclaimed Jedi. And then you have these dark side Force users who aren't necessarily Sith, but they are in tune with the dark side of the Force. With Balon, he's a very interesting character. And I'm loving these 2 dark side users in Star Wars, or within this series altogether. I think they're probably the best ones we've had because the Inquisitors and Obi-Wan Kenobi were just not my favorites, but this pair seems more menacing.
Yeah, they're doing a bit too much in Obi-Wan, and this one they just kind of let their characters do the talking instead of themselves.
Right. And within, us kind of just getting into episode 4, because that's really where, more ironically, with episode 3, there is a lot of action, but, that is more the training for Sabine and her reasoning. And then it kind of gets into the action on the latter half of that episode. But I do enjoy that episode because it does give us more context for Sabine's training. And like I said, for people in the Star Wars universe where it's like, oh, Luke Skywalker is a self-proclaimed Jedi, and then you have these 2 dark side users, and then we see with Sabine, it doesn't really click for her because she's using the lightsaber as if she were to use any other weapon because that's all she knows. But I digress. Us getting into episode 4, Devin, I'll pass it back over to you. What are your thoughts of, spoilers and all, of that episode, and what do you think of the series so far?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that this is an episode 4 because it feels like out of nowhere they just explode with all this action in one episode, and this one is similar time as as episode 3, I should say, 38 minutes for this one, but it's just so jam-packed with action nonstop, and there's so many fights and battles going on that it feels like it's a lot longer, which is a good thing because they have a lot going on, and there's battles between Ahsoka and Balon. Balon is just so cool looking. Just look at that guy. Rest in peace again.
Yeah.
And then we got Sabine and Shin duking it out at one point, and then
round 2, baby.
Marok, he looks really cool. I don't really know who he is, but he looks cool, and he has the cool spinny saber.
So apparently, and I did not know this, for Marok, the guy with the he kind of has like the traditional Inquisitor.
He kind of looks like Snake Eyes.
Yeah, he has like that traditional Inquisitor lightsaber where it kind of like twirls like on a little like axis or like, on the sphere. But apparently, and I didn't know this, apparently there was all of this talk about who this man was inside of like this whole just covered up. People thought it was Star Killer from Jedi or Star Wars Force Unleashed games. And there was like some people thought it was Ezra, and I didn't know this at all because I tried to block everything Star Wars related, and unfortunately for episode 4 this week I was spoiled for the cameo, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But apparently everyone's trying to figure out who this guy is, behind the mask, and it was just like, dust altogether. It was like people are so wild, and I'm actually glad we're not that in tune to what people are saying online, because the online noise is more of a minority voice, but it can feel so loud. But yeah, I just wanted to say that. Continue. I do apologize.
Yeah, there's some kind of mystery going on. It's like WandaVision all over again. It's like
God, don't remind
Mephisto all over again.
Oh, my life.
Who's Mephisto? Where's Mephisto? Who's Maroc? Where's Maroc? Marocsto.
Who is the engineer?
Yes, the engineer. We still don't know.
Sorry, go ahead.
But yeah, there's just a lot of battling going on in this one. There's a lot of cool lightsaber fights, a lot of cool color interactions. Like you got the orangish and the white battle between Ahsoka and Baylan, and then you got the green and orange, and then there's the red. There's just a lot of cool sabers going on, and it's so cool to see them all on the same screen. And then there's even a droid battle at one point. The droids were punching each other. I thought that was pretty cool. You don't usually see 2 droids battling.
Rockin' sockin' robots, baby.
Yeah. And then that ending, like you mentioned, we got a very special appearance that I'm sure you were squealing about.
Oh, yes. I knew it was coming, Devin. I knew it was coming, but it still got me. For those who have seen the episode, obviously we are talking about spoilers here today. Towards the end of the battle between Baylan and Ahsoka, Ahsoka gets pushed off or forced off of a cliff, and she ends up in the world between worlds, which is something which is actually something that was introduced in Rebels. And I saw someone online today saying that, Star Wars has the nerve to talk about time travel. And I was like, it's not time travel, though. And the guy didn't really even seem to have watched Rebels. So I was like, I'm not going to pay this any attention. But somebody put a video of Dave Filoni explaining the world between worlds. And of course, within that plane of existence, a lot of things can happen. And my boy, the chosen one, Anakin motherfrickin' Skywalker, appears, played by Hayden Christensen. So I was, he's only there for a second. He's only there for a moment. But the impact that this man leaves on screen. Everyone loves Anakin Skywalker nowadays. When he was first, during Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, people were like, oh my God, oh brother, this guy stinks, And I'm like, well, no, he was literally told what to do. That's what actors do. They follow the director's orders.
Man who hates sand.
Yes, but now people love Hayden Christensen. It doesn't make any sense, but it's always this weird turnaround because now you see people saying, oh, the prequels of Star Wars aren't so bad. But, since his return to the franchise, starting with Obi-Wan Kenobi playing as Darth Vader, he was actually in the suit, people have just lost it.
I think it's just the nostalgia factor where the kids who are watching the prequels trilogy growing up are now grown up enough to have loud and strong opinions, and that can get spread.
We're taking over. We're taking over as the dominant voice. All those OG fans out there of the original trilogy, step aside. We got prequel kids coming through, baby. So I'm very excited for that. But he's only there for a second. He says snips, which is something that he used to call Ahsoka during the Clone War days, during the early Clone War days. And it's just oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Apparently he's going to be in the next episode. they're going to have their little talk. I think this is like maybe a Force ghost of Anakin that we're seeing. And I'm very excited. Anakin and Ahsoka back at it again, master and apprentice reunited once more. But it was a great episode. Episode 4 was fantastic. You see Sabine, she kind of does the little the fake Force push thing because she's trying to train in episode 3, and I feel like that episode for episode 3 is a setup, and then the payoff is the Fallen Jedi. Because if we just went from the first 2 episodes and then straight into what is episode 4, if that was episode 3, there would have been, I feel like, a bit of a loss, because it's like, oh, like we need to see Sabine train because she became Ahsoka's apprentice off screen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, I think that was a very important episode that, catapults us into episode 4. And with Baylan, he doesn't really seem to be he's a threat, but he doesn't really seem to even want to use his lightsaber. Like,
yeah, he's not even trying very hard. He's just like, I'll just win this fight, and I'm going to put full effort into it. I got this under control.
I feel like he would be more so, I think he aligns more so with Ahsoka with being like a gray Jedi. Because, he has like the oranges.
Literally gray.
Literally, I know that sweet silver hair he has. He's like a Jedi Witcher or something. But he doesn't really like conflict, and he doesn't like to use his lightsaber unless he absolutely needs to. But we see between the fight between Baylan and Ahsoka is the one who makes the first move, which is, again, she's not your traditional Jedi. She was never claimed to be a Jedi. She was never given that title. But it's like, they can't take her Force abilities away from her. So, but I think it was great, and then we had the battle between between Sabine and Shin, and I thought that was great as well. And I've also noticed, I'm not sure if you noticed this, Devin, with Shin's hair, she has that little braid down, like I think it's like on her right side, but if you're looking at it, it's on her left side. So I'm assuming, obviously, she was probably a Padawan in training when she turned to the dark side, because she still has that. And that usually is like a little mark of, like it's that small little rat tail that Anakin had in in Attack of the Clones. Like he was still like a Padawan or an apprentice, I should say. So I'm not sure when she moved over to the dark side, but it seems fairly recently. That's just something small that I noticed. But
Qui-Gon Jinn.
So we did you saw that little, I guess it was just a little comment that he had said, or who was it? Liam Neeson had said that, Star Wars is kind of he said that Disney is diluting the brands. And this is through a Twitter post through Team Coco, which is like an official news site. Well, they're all official news sites, quote unquote official. But I'm assuming, for what this is, it's very, I don't know, it's kind of weird. But I think he has a bit of a point, not when it comes to diluting the brands, but I think the issue with Star Wars, as much as I'm enjoying Ahsoka, is that Star Wars is amazing. I absolutely love it, but I feel like it would be better if everything was told through a continuous like timeline. Because Star Wars has always been, the first 3 original movies kind of blew up, obviously, and then we get the prequel series or the prequel trilogy. And then everything else, like when it comes to TV shows and other movies, they've expanded farther than those 6 movies, but it's like they started in the middle of a story and then kind of branched off from there. But, so now they had to kind of like fill in the gaps. And I think that Heavy Spoilers was making a similar point where you were saying that Star Wars would probably be better if it was more, streamlined, like the continuity, like starting from the beginning and then going forward. But like, it is what it is at this point. But I've enjoyed it so far because there's small little things, but it's like, whatever. But I thought that was interesting. Qui-Gon Jinn, Mr. Liam Neeson kind of said, it's the fandom is a cult. He did mention that, and that is 100% true. But I don't think Disney is diluting the brands. But I do know what he means by, when a Star Wars movie came out, it meant something.
And also, there are no Star Wars movies in sight currently.
That is true. Yeah, we have not had a Star Wars movie since since The Rise of Skywalker. I've always joked and said that Disney's like on punishment, like they're grounded from making like Star Wars films again for like, honestly, give me 10 years without a Star Wars movie. Like, if they want to focus on video games or, TV shows here and there, focus on that. Do not give me another Star Wars movie until 2029, because that is when I think that's around a 10-year mark of when The Rise of Skywalker came out. Because Disney's on punishment for that because they dropped the ball very hard. They did not have a plan, and I understand Star Wars is first and foremost a film franchise, but they dropped the ball, man. They got to work something out like pronto. So I think we do have a few films in development. It's just I want them to drop like every so often. I don't think everything.
Also, not everything needs to be a trilogy.
That too, and I think that's a issue with Hollywood altogether. That we don't always need a trilogy. We can just get one-off stories like Rogue One. Rogue One was fantastic. I thought they were on a great run between Force Awakens, Rogue One, and even The Last Jedi. And then, it kind of just turned into something else. But I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. But, if it was up to me, no Star Wars movies for 10 years until 2029. We got 6 years left. I want Disney to think hard about what they've done. But let's get into our final thoughts of episodes 3 and 4. We're not going to be giving ratings until the end of the episode. That's usually how we cover television here on the show. So, Devin, what are your final thoughts on episodes 3 and 4 of Ahsoka?
I also just wanted to add in, we're talking about future Star Wars movies. I don't know if you saw the latest Film Theory episode, but Matt Pat seems to think that Christopher Nolan might be on the horizon for Star Wars in the future. Apparently, there's an interview where somebody asked him if he would do a superhero movie again. He said no, like straight up, like right away. But then they asked, would you want to do a Star Wars movie? And he said, I can't comment on that. So what does that mean? What does that mean?
Give me Oppenheimer in space.
Just imagine the visuals of a Nolan Star Wars movie.
That would be mesmerizing.
But yeah, that's just a theory. So throwing that out there. But as far as these episodes goes, like I said before, episode 3 didn't really do it for me, but episode 4 definitely made up for it because there's just so much going on and so much jam packed in 38 minutes, and then that ending reveal. It just feels so weird to have this in an episode 4. Like usually feels like episode 5. We're usually talking about something crazy happening, and apparently, they're putting episode 5 in theaters, so there must be even more crazy stuff happening next week for them to do that. I'm curious to see what they have planned. Yeah,
is that playing near you? Because it is not playing. I think the closest.
I didn't even look at the list,
dude. It's like 10. It's like 10 locations. Like, okay, I'm here in Music City. I don't even think there's one in Atlanta. Nor would I drive to Atlanta for that. I almost did for Stranger Things season 4. I almost did, Devin. I had my tickets ready, but the timing did not align, was not in my favor, so to speak. But yeah, I think the closest one to me is like maybe Florida or something like that. Let me check really quick because I think I sent that to you. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And then they were like, nope. It's like okay, so it's in Boston, Chicago, Dallas, Los Angeles, New York, Florida, Philly, San Francisco, and Washington, Seattle, Washington, and then Washington, D.C. So yeah, it's like 10 locations. Like a few of them are in California. One's in like San Francisco. One's in L.A. One's in Texas. So like, yeah, it's New York, L.A., and a bunch of like random states. So it's like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I wish they would have just done it between more theaters. Like that would have been like, it seems like they had this plan for a while. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just kind of put an episode 5 up there. That's why I'm thinking they must have something crazy planned.
Yeah. Or it's probably the longest episode of the series. But I hope, even though, you know, for episode 5 next week, I hope it doesn't stop there. Like, I don't want to be like, okay, you know, like this is it. Like this is the pinnacle. And then the rest of the episodes are like garbage or something. But overall, I think this is so far my favorite Star Wars series that we've gotten. I mean, I love The Mandalorian, don't get me wrong, but I was a Rebels fan and an Ahsoka fan first and an Anakin fan first. So that's just where I lie with that. And that concludes today's episode of our episode 3 and 4 coverage of Ahsoka. If you enjoyed what you heard on today's episode, please make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your preferred podcast platform of choice. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at Film Optix. That is Optix with an X. And don't forget to share an episode of our podcast with a friend, whether it be your mother, your brother, or your significant other. Spread the love of the Film Optix podcast to a movie lover in need. And now, really quick, let's take a sneak peek of what's coming up next in the show and what you can listen to currently that is out on our podcast. So we recently just covered Bottoms, the new teen comedy of the new age, coming of age movie. It was hilarious. Definitely go check it out on our show. And we also did a little bit of a midway break episode where we kind of went through our favorite film and TV shows of 2023 thus far. Mr. Michael Thomas joined us on that venture, and we had a lot of fun with it. And of course, you can listen to our episodes 1 and 2 review, which is combined into one episode of Ahsoka, and our Blue Beetle review, which me and Devin gave our spoiler-free reviews on. And for moving forward with the podcast, September is a bit of a dry month, just a bit of a dry month. We have a lot of things. A lot of things are going to be hitting the weekend of September 22nd. There are a lot of television shows such as The Continental, which we will be giving our review of on September 20th. I believe that is when the embargo releases. I'll have to check on the time. So that'll definitely be something to look forward to. That is a 3-part event that Devin and I are going to be covering. So we're going to have our episode 1 review released a few days earlier than the premiere review for The Continental, the John Wick miniseries spinoff, which debuts or premieres on Peacock on September 22nd. And from there, within those next few weeks, for the next 3 weeks there, from September 22nd onward, we'll be giving our the other 2 episodes on a weekly basis as well. So that is something you can look forward to. So with all that said, thank you all for listening. And if you enjoy the show, please leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And stay connected with us by following us again on Twitter and Instagram and Threads for the latest updates. I'm Christian, and that was Devin signing off. And remember, life is like a movie. So go out there and make it a blockbuster.
Peace.